But right now, very pleased to have with us on the program Congressman from Arizona, member of the House Oversight Committee, Representative Paul Gosar is with us. Congressman, good evening, sir.
Cam, thanks for having me on. Thanks for all you're doing.
No, absolutely. Well, glad to have you. And big news today, the Oversight Committee going to court, seeking to compel the administration to release these 1,300 subpoenaed documents. What is your what's your take on where this investigation is right now?
Well, I think we're right on track. You know, the Justice Department and this administration have tried to hide the facts from the American people on this. And, you know, Richard Nixon tried to do this. George Bush didn't get away with it, and neither is this president. So we're right on track. The thing about it is that we need to be due diligent and make sure that they comply with the rule of law like everybody else.
Absolutely. And you know, I know we've already seen the release of the first of 3 reports from the House Oversight Committee talking about the ATF involvement with Fast and Furious. Know that there are 2 other reports, one detailing DOJ's involvement in Fast and Furious, and then the third one detailing the cover-up, if you will. When do you think we might see the release of the second report? Have you heard anything?
I think we're going to see it before we go back in September. So later this month is where I'm expecting to see those, because we're told that the Inspector General's report is coming out. We met with him in our office, and he said he was going to take the gloves off. And I would hope that he would do it. I have some trust issues with him, seeing that he actually wrote a recommendation letter for Lanny Brewer for the position he now holds. So I want to make sure that we get a fair Inspector General's report on that. He says he's going to, but we'll see. And I think that will precede the Inspector General or they're right after with our second report.
Is it expected that the Inspector General will get into the 10 months between that first letter that was sent to Congress that said, absolutely not, we didn't allow guns to walk in Fast and Furious, and the letter that said, we have to take back what we said 10 months ago? Is that going to be a part of the Inspector General's investigation at all, or is this just going to be about the operation itself?
My understanding is that he's had access to 240,000 pages and countless individuals that we have never even had a chance to. I would expect him to do his due diligence and his job to the Constitution to uphold and defend it and have transparency that this administration has said that they will do, but comply and compel them to produce that transparency and hold people accountable. I mean, America deserves nothing less, Cam.
Absolutely. And, you know, the fact that, again, the Inspector General has had access to, as you say, 240,000 documents that the House Oversight Committee has not had access to, this is, we have been told time and again, the most transparent administration in history, Representative. Why would the administration not let the American people have access to at least some of these documents?
Well, I mean, you know, that's what inquiring minds want to know, Cam. And you know, if you had nothing to hide, why would it cause a problem for you? You know, when you were going to roll out Eric Holder and triumphant aspect into Phoenix, maybe you better be looking at a problem. When you have the audacity to talk about an aggressive gun running campaign in April of 2009 in Mexico City, and then the president backs you up by misquoting facts, saying that 90% of all guns found at Mexican crime scenes come from the United States, you know, once again, we find this administration that lies over and over and over again. That's a falsehood. And I'm getting tired of Pinocchios in this administration. What we need to do is make sure that we have transparency and make sure people are held accountable. This is worse than we've ever seen, even in Watergate. And the reason being is Brian Terry has lost his life, and that family still has no answers. We actually have Jaime Zapata, who's died. We've seen over 300 Mexicans lose their lives. And where's the cry? Where is the Latino caucus? Where are they asking for answers? We need to have those answers. We need to make sure that we hold those accountable, because nobody can be bypassed by the rules of law. If you did the crime, you're going to have to do that time, and that includes the Attorney General. And we need to make sure that we put in place process so this never happens again. How outrageous this situation actually was.
Absolutely, Congressman. And you know, I mean, given all that has happened to date and the continued obstruction by the administration, I mean, we did have the bipartisan vote in Congress to hold Eric Holder in contempt. I know that there's probably not going to be any resolution to this before the November elections, but you know, we've seen in other instances, like the federal judge in Washington, D.C., in a case that Judicial Watch had filed, determined that political appointees had, despite what the administration had claimed, they had been involved in the decision not to prosecute in the new Black Panther Party case, for instance. There have been other instances here of this administration telling Congress one thing when the truth was something else entirely. It's not just fast and furious with this Justice Department. And, the American people, I think you're right. I think we have reached the point we are demanding some answers and demanding some accountability from these folks.
Absolutely. The Attorney General said that, in our hearing, that we ought to acclaim him for the good things that he does. I'm still trying to find one of those. What part of the Constitution has he been upholding? In fact, when you go back to Congressman Trey Gowdy, when he talked about justice, what do you see of her? She's blindfolded. She doesn't see who she gives justice to. She has a set of scales that she weighs the information as she gets it to give a clear, decisive resolution, and a sword to give that quickly and swiftly. Well, part of that is legislative. And yet this Attorney General talks over and over again about his legislative involvement, the laws that he picks and chooses to enforce, and those that he doesn't. This is a quandary, and right here in our own in front of our eyes, we're seeing an administration with a chief law enforcement officer defying the Constitution to its gravest point.
Absolutely, Congressman. Before we let you go, I've got to ask you. Your colleague Paul Ryan named to the ticket with Mitt Romney over the weekend. Any thoughts?
I was predicting this, and I think it's the greatest choice because we're going to have that adult moment to talk about issues. Dream a little bit, America. Think about a vice president that actually takes his seat as the president of the Senate. And think of the opportunities we're going to have that adult conversation about getting this country back. Dream a little bit, think about the Constitution, and reread it. Because once you do, it sets you free.
Absolutely. Congressman, thanks again for your time, sir. Great talking to you. Hope we can do it again soon.
Cam, always a pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you so much, sir. Representative Paul Gosar joining us from the great state of Arizona.